Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
So my name is Jim Ferguson. I'm joined with an old friend to the channel, although it's the first time I've been on with his channel quite a few times in the past. But I'd like to welcome you, Crypto Rich. How are you, mate? You all right?
I'm very good, Jim. It's so good to talk to you again because we've done this a few times on my channel. I just really appreciate you having me on yours because yours has just exploded.
Yeah. Much to my surprise, I had no idea that we're heading towards 250,000 followers. It's just crazy. I mean, I celebrated. I thanked everybody when we got to 220. That was before I went to Geneva, and it's just thousands more since then. So I'm very, very lucky, very fortunate, and it's very humbling, if I'm being honest with you. But there you go. But anyway, Rich, for those of people that do watch this show, they might not have seen you on with me before. So for their sake, would it be all right for you just to say a little bit about who you are, where you're sort of located generally, and what you do?
Yes. Well, I'm in England. I'm in Southern England, and I do got to say something about my name, Crypto Rich, right? Because we're not going to be talking crypto. We might mention Bitcoin, but a lot of the coverage that I do nowadays is about politics and economics and macroeconomics. But I started as a crypto channel in April 2017. And because I work as a child protection social worker, and I've been found by families that I've worked with as a social worker, I don't, I, I try and keep a low profile in terms of my real name and stuff. And I don't want people to be put off. Some people think, oh, crypto's a Ponzi, Bitcoin's a Ponzi. We're not going to be talking about that. And I would invite people to go and investigate and check it out.
What? I mean, all the times I've been on, we've never talked about crypto. We've always talked about all the other stuff. So yeah, no. All right. Well, look, thank you so much indeed for that. It really is nice to see you. You and I have a lot of common ideas about a lot of things. Now, that's probably going to become apparent as we talk back and forth, but there is something which I think you are quite vocal about. And I've noticed some really, really good posts on your channel. And of course, we're going to put the links up to that so people can find you. And I would certainly encourage people to go and give you a follow because you've got some great content. You've got some great guests that come on with you as well. So tell us then all about what you've been posting within the last sort of day or so about not paying taxes.
Yes, not paying taxes. And I just want, I am Muslim. My parents Muslims, my son's become a proper Orthodox Muslim. But for 10 years, I've been going to, when I do go somewhere, I go to Quaker meetings. Because one of the things that I fully endorse about Quakerism is their stand for peace. I'm up for a world where human beings honor human beings. I don't care who you are, what you're up for, peace. We've got to find a way of living in peace. And that means we got to let go of any permission to resolve any differences through killing other people's children. And that applies to you and I. We are children, Jim. Just ask our mum and dad, right? They still think of us as children, right? Ask our mums and dads because we don't have the same ones. But anyway.
Well, I don't think we do, but hey ho, it's a strange old world. If you go back far enough, we probably are related,
So a few months ago, actually about a year ago, I came across a guy called Chris Coverdale, who's an anti-war campaigner. And he has found a system that's completely legal that allows people to legally not pay their taxes as a protest against war. And I've posted a few videos about that. And I can, if I can talk to you a little bit about it. Now, it isn't just a protest against war. If people are like you and I are both opposed to the Great Reset, we're opposed to any government that says that it has a right to put some medical concoction into our bodies, because I think we both think the Nuremberg Code stands for something, right?
Yeah.
So as a way of, I don't want my government paying for the killing of people abroad. I don't want my government paying for investing in CBDCs and paying for the net zero calamity that, that they want to visit upon us. I don't want my government paying for destroying farmland, where they want 20% of UK farmland to be rewilded. Well, what's that going to do to food prices? And you can send them through the roof, and we're just going to have to eat bugs. I don't want to be eating bugs. Right? So,
well, I don't know about you, but I've got no appetite for bugs, right? Give me a good, juicy, well-done steak. Well, maybe not even so well done, a little bit in between, and that does me.
I'm with you on that one, Jim. I'm with you on that one. So if I can explain this process briefly, right? So and this works in pretty much every single country, which is most of them, that has ratified either a convention against genocide, the Rome Statute for the International Criminal Court, I think it's called, and people can find all the references and all the material via bit.ly/make war history, bit.ly/makewarhistory. That'll take you to the website. So the International Conventions Against Genocide or Against the Financing of Terrorism. The UK has ratified them. And these statutes say that it's a criminal offense to give any organization any money or to support in any way the aiding or the abetting or the facilitating or the carrying out of genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and acts of terrorism. Now, this includes the government support for conflicts abroad, as well as the government support or the government actively being involved in bombing people in Yemen and wherever this government. The UK government is engaged in over 80 conflicts since the end of the Second World War. Now, regardless of people's position on that, some people may support this conflict and not that one. Some may think it's all okay. I would much rather the government spent money on looking after our own, on securing our borders, investing in education, fixing the roads, digging up coal, and investing in our independent energy. I would much rather that than to spend it on killing people abroad. Now, the statutes in Britain are the International Criminal Court Act 2001 and the Terrorism Act 2000 that make it an offense to give money to an organization that engages in genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and terrorism. Now, genocide is defined within statute. I'm not going to have a political argument about it, but what the law says, what the statute says, is the killing of one or more people that are united by nationality, ethnicity, religion, or race. So by providing arms for the conflict within Ukraine, our government is supporting genocide because it's killing more than two people that are united by nationality, religion, race. What was the other one? Ethnicity. That constitutes genocide according to British statute. And there's a clause in the Terrorism Act, I'm going to use both of these together, which says that it might be the International Criminal Court Act, forgive me, I don't have the references in front of me, that say that it's the British government, agencies of the Crown, and those that work for agencies of the Crown are not exempt from these provisions. And we have a maxim in British law that we're all equal under the law. And the Supreme Court has ruled that when it comes to terrorism, British government agencies and its personnel are not exempt from the provisions of the Terrorism Act. And the terrorism, what Britain has done in Yemen by bombing people, we're not at war with Yemen, by bombing people at Yemen, according to the Terrorism Act, constitutes terrorism. So any money that goes towards the British government in any way, so whether it's local government or central government, the BBC license fee, any form of tax, indirect or direct, parking fine, bus lane fine, speeding fine, LTN and ULEZ fines, all of those, it's capital gains tax, all of them, it's all pooled into one fund called the Consolidated Fund, which was set up in 1787. So all revenue goes into this one fund, including your council tax and your bus lane ticket violations, and then the government disperses it. 10% of that is sent on arms expenditure, which includes acts that violate the International Criminal Court Act and the Terrorism Act. Now, the elites don't pay tax, and how they don't pay tax is they put their money in trust by creating a deed of trust and an affidavit. And if you go to that website, bit.ly/makewarhistory, people can download the trust forms. There's like 4 bits to fill in. And to say, for example, and I did a video where somebody sent me a letter, somebody anonymous sent me a letter that they wrote to HMRC in response to HMRC, where they're pointing all these things out. So let's say somebody's got £1,000 capital gains tax. You send the trust fund, completed the document, you send them a copy of it, it's signed by somebody who's not a relative, and it says, HMRC can have the money as the primary beneficiary, provided they can prove that none of these proceeds will be used in contravention of these statutes. And they have, you can set a certain time by when they can do that. And then if it doesn't do that by a certain time, then it goes to the secondary beneficiary, which could be the person who's paying the tax, or it could be somebody else. Now,
I feel a campaign coming on.
very good, Jim. A trust law is, and the rules of equity is older than the Magna Carta. It's older than the 1688 Bill of
Wow.
Rights. It's so ingrained, entrenched within our legal system. And HMRC is not exempt from the provisions of trust law or the rules of equity. Now you don't send any money with it. What you do is you keep the original document and 5% of whatever's owed in cash or as a promissory note or as a check, somewhere secure, so that you can fulfill on your side of the bargain that if they do say, look, none of this money is going to go to in violation of these actions, these acts, then you pay them. But they can't. They actually can't because of the government policy. Now, one of the things that Chris Coverdale told me is that, with the Iraq War, the Attorney General at the time said, yes, it wasn't against international law for us to bomb Iraq. The actual charter, UN charter, excludes the use of violence or the threat of violence for resolving disputes. It actually says to resolve all disputes peacefully without the threat of violence or without violence. There's no provision to use violence within the UN Charter. We were lied to, Jim. We were lied to, and it's destroyed millions of people's lives and messed up the entire Middle East.
I mean, I want to come back to something here because this is really, really interesting. And I think a lot of people are going to say, is this really the case? Well, we're going to put links into some of the videos that you've done so that people can actually go and research. And I think we're going to have you back on to maybe dissect this a little bit more. But, first thing that I noticed was when you talked about this mass scale illegal immigration that's going on. Now, you're a Muslim, right? You're not in favor of this mass illegal immigration.
God, no.
There are people that would say, well, you must be far right then. I mean, how would you respond to that? Because I know you're not far right.
That's right. Jim, I have been called far right, a white supremacist.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because I believe in things like tradition and faith and family. And I believe in things like there being two sexes. And no matter what chemicals you give me, it's not going to change the DNA in each and every cell of my body, right? So things like that.
Yes.
Open borders didn't work for India.
Yeah.
Open borders didn't work for the traditional cultures of Africa. When the Europeans just came in, cut up the lands, enslaved people, was it the Belgians killed 11 million Congolese people? Open borders didn't work for the Americas when the Europeans arrived, when they killed millions of bison in order to deprive Native Americans of food. Open borders didn't work for the people of Tasmania who were hunted like animals by the British. They killed every single one of them. So I'm not opposed to immigration. I'm an immigrant myself. I wasn't born here. I was born in Pakistan. But I know you and you cover a lot of what's going on in Ireland. So do I, right? My problem with Ireland is I haven't visited it enough times. Beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful people with no legacy of racism or imperialism other than being subjected to it like the Indians and the Africans were. You take a homogenous nation with a rich tradition, Catholic culture, and what's it now? In the last couple of years, it's gone up from 3 million to 5 million.
That's right.
The new arrivals, 1 in 3 new arrivals, 1 in 3 in Ireland are new arrivals. Now, I wouldn't want 1 in 3 between the ages of 19 and 39. That's it. 1 in the ages of 19 and 39. So the most productive part of the workforce, 1 in 3 are recent arrivals. I wouldn't want that to happen to Pakistan. If 1 in 3 19 to 13-year-olds in Pakistan were from Africa or Europe or South America or Thailand, that would destroy Pakistani culture and tradition. I think people's culture and traditions are worth preserving.
Well, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you talk about Ireland. Ireland is an ancient people. They're deeply artistic, very musical, just wonderful people. I really love the Irish, but I love all people. I mean, I like humanity. Is what I'm on the side of humanity. And what we're seeing with these globalists, and you and I have talked about this before. I mean, I don't care that you're a Muslim and I'm a Christian. We both have the same values, and we've often talked about that. And that's why it's so important for people not to allow themselves to become polarized, whether along religious grounds, for example, because we've actually got an awful lot more in common than that which divides us. But it's like the proverbial ants jar. I mean, kids sometimes, young boys mostly, sometimes they'll say, well, what will happen if you red ants in with black ants? Well, actually, not much happens. But when you start shaking that jar, they'll rip each other to bits. And I think it's a bit like if you imagine a triangle, and most of the human race are along this bottom line somewhere. And we're being sort of made to focus in on each other all the time. But what we should really be focusing on are the people that's up at the top, right?
That's right.
Because they're the ones that are shaking it all. They're the ones that are destabilizing it. And they're doing a very good job of that with mass illegal immigration. But I wanted to make that point. You're not far right. If anything, you're on the left. You're actually on the
I'm
moderate
very
left.
left-wing.
I know you are. And I'm on the right.
Yeah.
But we always get on like a house on fire. And I know that I've never met you in person, but I know that if I did, we'd probably be, like get on like a house on fire, because we do anyway. But I mean,
The stake together.
this is, yeah, exactly. But I mean, at the end of the day, we have to all wake up, because they're dividing humanity along religion grounds, black and white, gay and straight, all young and old. Any way they can cause division, they will do it, because that suits their purposes. And when we're all busy fighting each other along this bottom part of this triangle, they don't get seen for what they're really doing. But there is a bit of a wake up occurring, thanks to people like you and perhaps this channel as well. And that is very evident in the European elections. And I'd love to get your views on some of the latest results. So, I mean, what's your thinking on that?
I just want to go back to something you said about the way they're dividing us, right? And if I can just say a little bit more about the immigration stuff. There's one thing to bring in skilled labor, skilled vetted labor when when the economy is growing and booming. It's completely something else to let anybody in, for governments to spend money on bringing people in that are unvetted, where there isn't jobs, there's no growth happening. So then you have conflict in local communities, because you have increased population struggling for the same resources, and you don't know who's coming in. Drug traffickers, child traffickers. I'm just going to say about child trafficking, 8 million children disappear every year all over the world. 8 million. 40,000 in Britain. Where do they go? Where do they go? And I think everybody will agree with me, any decent human being will agree with me, that we cannot have the trafficking of children, and open borders facilitate that. Now, the other thing that they don't do about this identity politics, the way that they divide and rule us, they don't pay attention to class issues, because that would undermine them. Tony Benn was a hero of mine, political hero of mine, possibly of yours too, Jim. I'm sure there's plenty of his stuff that you agreed with, right?
Oh yeah.
He was opposed to the EU as you and I are, right?
He was a great guy, actually. I'll be before you go on to what you're going to say, I would just say that Sir Keir Hardie is a fellow Scot who started the Labour movement back in Glasgow in the day. And, if he came back and saw what the modern Labour Party had become, he'd be appalled. And one other final thing I'll say about people on the left and the right. We're not as divided as people might like us to be, because in the Brexit Party, we're still, it's a far right party. And people used to laugh, because about at least 40% were former Labour people. They were from the left, but they were just strong Brexiteers, a bit like Tony Benn. Sorry, on you go.
Yeah, well, Tony Benn said we have to be really careful about immigration, have to deal with it sensitively. So don't exclude people because of their skin color or their religion or whatever. But mass immigration serves the ruling class, because it drives down wages and it has us fighting each other. There's something, Amazon did a study or whatever, and they found one way to prevent unions taking hold is by having diverse workforces. Because if you have, I don't know, this group from this, a little group from this nationality or religion, this group from this nationality or religion, this group from this national religion, they don't unite across class lines to campaign for better working conditions for all. No, it just splits them up. So it's really important for us, people who believe in liberty, who believe in sovereignty, to work together and recognize that we have a common shared goal and common shared values. 100 Tory MPs voted against vax mandates in Parliament. 8 opposition MPs voted against it. But those included those far left extremists like Jeremy Corbyn and Diane Abbott, because they think that, like you and I, that bodily autonomy counts for something, and the government doesn't have a right to invade my body. So I just want to say that about the class issue. It is a class issue. And then it deprives those countries of their labor, which is one of my criticisms about Europe, right? You have a brain drain from Romania, all the Romanians, for example, coming into Europe, coming into the UK. Okay, we get great nannies and great plumbers and stuff, but these are doctors, these are teachers. Romania loses the most productive element of its workforce and has less money to take care of its own. It's poor, it's elderly, it's sick, it's children. It gets hollowed out. Why would I want to do that to Romania?
Do you
So
think there is a major shift starting to happen? Because we've seen, I think the two big things for me so far, although there's a lot of Irish politicians who've now become elected that I've met in my travels to Limerick and Dublin and Southern Ireland in particular, they seem to be doing quite well, but we don't have all the results in. But Germany, the AfD, I think, is now officially the biggest or the second biggest party now in Germany. And in France, it looks like that globalist Macron has panicked. He's seen the results coming in. Marine Le Pen is surging up. Do you think we've seen the last of this, or do you think this is going to lead to really dynamic change in Europe?
I don't think it's going to lead to dynamic change.
Okay.
I don't. I think the globalists, the WEF, and those behind them are incredibly, incredibly devious. This is such a massive project. I don't think this project will win. I think the Great Reset is crumbling and it won't prevail. It will fail in the end, but they're going to go hell for leather to keep it alive and keep it going.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's always
I agree.
there's always the risk of capture that people like Marine Le Pen and Maloney and others may either be threatened or compromised or bribed. I'm not saying those people are, but it could happen.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they're pretty devious. And I think that in terms of Meloni in Italy, she was sort of seen as a darling of the right. But she seems to have changed her position on the large scale mass illegal immigration for one thing.
Yeah.
She seems to be very supportive of Zelensky in Ukraine. And one has to wonder, did she compromise? I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are very disappointed in her. But certainly there seems to be pushback happening. And what about the likes of the British election? Because I mean, we've had an election called now for the 4th of July. Do you see? Let me ask you this, because it's almost as if Richie Sunak's going out of his way to really piss off the British people, right? And I wonder, is this just another baton hand over to his WEF colleague, Sir Keir Starmer, who's a Davos man? He's picked Davos over Westminster. They're all the uniparty system. They're all globalists. I mean, what he's doing to the Conservative Party, he's destroying it, isn't he?
He is just absolutely destroying it. Jim, when Boris Johnson resigned, I said on several of my videos, the political analysis that I do, that what I think the Tories are going to do, these fake WF Tories are going to do such a, I was about to swear, such a terrible, terrible job that they're going to destroy any credibility that the Tory party has. And then what's going to come in is Keir Starmer's Labour Party, fake Labour Party with a massive majority. They will go hell for leather, full on Great Reset and CBDCs, without the 100 or so liberty-loving right-wing Tories, without the Brexiteers, without that rump standing in opposition for autonomy, for sovereignty. So, and then I can see it happening with Keir Starmer's purge of the left wing in the Labour Party, the sovereigntist left wingers. So then
that's a key word, isn't it? The sovereignty. I mean, that's really that's it in a nutshell. It is about self-autonomy. It's about independence. It's about running our own affairs. We do not need a bunch of unelected bureaucrats sitting in the EU Commission. I mean, I've nothing against the members of the European Parliament, the lawmakers, but they're the only lawmakers in the world that cannot make any laws unless this bunch of EU commissioners and people actually agree. That's not what I call democracy, Rich. I mean, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe dystopian tyranny, a dictatorship, but it's not democracy.
Politburo. It's a politburo. Yeah. It's a fraud.
Yes, good
because it pretends to be a democracy. Here's a question to any Remainers out there. So the European Union has decided that they're going to bring in a digital ID and a CBDC. What can the European citizens do to lobby for change, to change the law, change legislation to say to the EU, no CBDC, no digital ID? What can the European citizens do? Now,
they can put MEPs in, but the MEPs, even if every single MEP wanted to do what the citizens want them to do, they can't if the EU Commission don't agree.
That's right. MEPs can't propose legislation. They just can't. So you can lobby MEPs all you want, and the MEPs can't do anything. So then it's all down to what the Commission says, and the Commission is not accountable to the electorate. So there's no way that we can vote them out.
No.
So you're stuck. It's an incredibly smart and devious, dictatorial, anti-democratic system that pretends to be. And actually, Jim, one of the things that I see happening a lot, and this goes to my child protection social work, is abuse. So as a social worker, I see abuse. And one of the things that I deal with a lot is, and I'm going to bring it to the political sphere in a moment, right, is domestic abuse, where usually the guy beating up on the woman or controlling her financially or emotionally is going to say things like, I'll tell you when you can go out. I'll tell you who you can mix with. I'll tell you how long you can go out for. Don't worry about having an independent income. I'll give you pocket money, a little bit of pin money. I'll tell you what you have to wear. And I'll tell you what you can do. And I'm doing it all for your own good. Well, that's the government during lockdown. Now, what we got there is that discourse, that pattern of behavior played out as a fractal on a much larger scale. So there's European Union saying, and the government saying, look, we're gonna surveil you. It's for your own good. We're going to keep an eye on you. Well, how is that any different to some guy stalking a woman all the time, keeping an eye on her for her own good?
We're in an abusive relationship with our own government and the globalists, and unfortunately, until we break away from that, and I don't need to tell you, I mean, you know how difficult it is for like women, it's in a situation like that to get away from these people. But you mentioned something else, which I would like, because I know that you were very, very much against forced mandated, but vaccinations and all of that, and you were very much against the lockdowns. But I want to ask you something, because there's a lot of chatter taking place, and I've been posting about this. I've been warning people about this. This H5N1 avian influenza bird flu that they're reporting having gone from poultry into beef cattle and now into humans. And I'm starting to see things like it's in the milk. It's in the milk. We need to watch this. We need to go back to the PCR testing. Like that's going to do any good. And then I've heard other reports and confirmed that there is H5N1 human vaccines already here in the UK that's been shipped in en masse in large plane loads of cargo. Now, I don't know about you, but when these globalists did what they did, everybody working in lockstep with each other. Do you remember Build Back Better, Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand? Oh, man.
Yep.
Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau in Canada, Macron in France, all the WEF, all these World Economic Forum cultists, well, they're still largely there. It hasn't changed. I mean, a few of the names might have changed. Rishi Sunak is just as much in league with them as Boris Johnson was. Now, do you think that they're sort of looking at doing something like that again? And I also want your opinion on what's happening across the pond in the United States, because we're coming towards an election in November. Trump's under all sorts of a heavy attack. I mean, he's been under heavy attack even since he was president. It hasn't stopped. They're trying to stop him. Do you think we might be witnessing another lockdown, another so-called pandemic of H5N1? What's your thoughts on that? And do you think the timing's a bit suspicious, especially in relation to the potential for Trump being elected again?
Yes, it definitely suspicious, because then they can impose the lockdowns and mail-in ballots or cancel the election or something like that. They're going to try everything, go hell for leather. I saw a little clip of Trump. He was actually saying, look, they're going to do this again. They're going to try and impose lockdowns and mask mandates and vaccines. Don't believe it. It's so that they can steal the election again. I think they are going to go for it. I hope and I think that people aren't going to fall for it the same way. But there's still a different threat with the bird flu. So one, I kind of want to say sarcastically, oh, we can trust them. They were so on the ball and never lied to us about anything before. Sure, I was wrong about not having the mRNA injection. Let me roll my sleeve up now. I want several every day, right? Because they're just thinking about me. They care about me so much. Hell no. I don't think people are going to buy it.
Yeah.
And also, I know for myself, I know more about my rights under British common law. The 1688 Bill of Rights is still in effect, cannot be repealed by Parliament. Parliament cannot institute any laws that are to the prejudice of the people. That includes stopping me from going to see my family, because that's a prejudice against all of us. So I don't think it will fly. Where I think the bird flu stuff is dangerous is what they're going to do to the food supply. That they'll go
absolutely
poisoning, killing off chickens. I'm like, well, if there's a flu going through the livestock herd, well, let it run through naturally, and then you'll have natural immunity in those that are still alive. Job done. No, they want to kill them off to prevent them from dying. And then, they say it jumps, but they also said that it was that coronavirus was zoonotic. I don't know if you saw any of Fauci's hearings last week in Congress, right? Right.
Yeah,
Such a
yeah.
complete and utter liar, right? So they say it jumps across the cows, therefore they need to kill all the cows. Well, didn't they want to kill all the cows anyway because they fart too much? Because apparently carbon dioxide is really bad for us. Never mind, without carbon dioxide, you don't have plant growth because you need photosynthesis. So that's where I think it's dangerous. But thanks a lot, thanks to people like yourselves, and I suppose me, right, in my own small way, many others, more and more people are waking up. I noticed with my family now on my WhatsApp groups, my family, I get no pushback about the injections. None.
Oh, that's good. That's
Apart from my household, my wife, my sister, and my daughter, everyone in my family, and I have a pretty large family, has had at least one shot. I get no pushback. And I'll ask them about the bird flu. Hands up if you're going to have the bird flu vaccine when it comes out. And please, God, please don't anybody put their hands up.
No, not. But listen, there is something that bothers me about this, and these are devious people. These are dark people. These are, in my opinion, really quite evil people. I've spoken to a lot of professors, a lot of epidemiologists, top doctors, and people who have got a lot of knowledge about these things. There is a worry that when you hear somebody like Bill Gates, there's a very famous video or infamous video, depending on your view, of him sitting next to his wife, Melinda. She was his wife at that point. And they kind of look to each other, and he gives her a very strange sort of smirking grimace or grin. And he says, well, next time they'll pay more attention. And I go, that'll teach them. And I'm like, this is really bad. This is like really bad stuff. I'm worried, Rich, that they might actually do something bad, that they might actually, through gain of function research, and I've talked to a lot of people who are pretty convinced this is happening, that they release something that is actually deadly.
Yep.
And a lot of people are going to say, it's just another COVID scam, right? It's not real. But I don't actually trust them not to do something like that. What do you think?
I'm sure they're going to try it. I mean, if you look through human history, the cruelty that the elites have meted out, Pol Pot killing a third of his own population, and this was a homogenous country. It wasn't like this was some other different tribe, right? Or what the British did in Ireland, exporting potatoes and starving the Irish, killing 20 million people in India. This is what the elites did. This is what human beings do to each other. I see it all the time in households. What if people can do what they do to their own children, well, doing nasty stuff to a whole bunch of useless eaters, that's a piece of cake. So yes, they're going to try it. I don't think they're going to succeed. And here's why. So one is, I have to believe that they're not going to succeed. Otherwise, what's the point? I have to stand for that they're not going to succeed. Otherwise, I give up. Nelson Mandela in prison for 27 years. The man had to believe that one day apartheid will end. So we have to stand. We have to say no and believe in our no. Otherwise, might as well roll over and I don't know how many booster shots you've had today, Jim. I'm a bit worried about you. Don't, Jim. Don't.
You don't have to work too hard to convince me about that, mate. I'm in your team.
So there's that, right? Then there's the other thing. If I think of a project as a set of tasks with a particular beginning and an end. So the project might be, when my son is 5 and my daughter's 3, I just got to get them dressed and get them in the car to go to the local supermarket. Pretty simple project. I've done it many times before. Oh my God, the amount of hiccups and breakdowns and interruptions, and it goes wrong. And what do you mean you can't find your shoe? You had it yesterday. Where's your shoe? I wasn't expecting that. Oh, you want to go to the toilet now? I just told you ages ago. Okay, where'd you put the car key? Where'd you put the car key? All those laughter and recognition, right, Jim? Right?
Yeah.
Just for that little project. 3 people, an adult and 2 little kids, just that little project, right? You take the Great Reset project, a massive undertaking involving millions and millions of people, many moving parts that aren't going to cooperate. They wanted, my understanding is they wanted lockdown to last for 10 years. It didn't because too many people woke up too fast. And then we haven't mentioned, and I would like to, if we can get onto it, is the terrible state that the European financial system is in. It's
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Because that's the root of Davos's power, of the WF power. European Union is in such a good state. It was in such good state that they had negative and zero interest rates for 8 years, from 2014 to 2022. Now, if people don't know about banking, that's upside down money. You cannot have a
Yeah.
financial system on negative or zero interest rates. You destroy capital that way. But what it allowed the WEF to do and the elites to do is to borrow money at zero cost or negative cost and then invest it in all kinds of crazy boondoggles, all that green stuff, because they don't have to produce a return. They don't have to make a profit on it. Plus, it also allowed them to bribe people and to pay for all their little projects that are part of the Great Reset. The Federal Reserve is raising interest rates, has been raising interest rates for a couple of years now, little by little by little by little. Europe has starved itself of manufacturing, of funding, of cheap energy. Germany has sanctioned itself. Germany is the financial and the manufacturing powerhouse of Europe. They don't have cheap energy. Instead of negotiating for peace, they went to war with their major energy supplier through proxy, right? So how is German energy manufacturing going to compete with China or India or Indonesia or Mexico? They can't compete. So then where is Germany going to generate any of that sort of revenue? And what's going to keep the euro strong? The euro doesn't have any collateral. Europe doesn't have resources the way that South America does, or Africa does, or China does, or Russia does, right? Or the Congo does, or the US does, right? So then imagine you're a big hedge fund player. You got billions of dollars that you got in park somewhere. You can get, I don't know, what is it, 2.5% in the Eurozone versus 4.5% in the US? You have to move your money to the US. You have to put it where you're going to get the best return. So then the dollars, the euro dollars, the dollars held abroad are being sucked out of Europe. And what that's going to could precipitate, is a sovereign debt crisis in Europe because the European economies are so moribund. Now,
Do you think that's where they're looking to do that? I mean, do you think that that's where this build up to CBDCs and digital ID and all of that is that? Do you think that that's what they're really actually planning to cause that to happen, and then they'll have to come in with this excuse?
I think behind that, what you're saying, the answer to that is much, much bigger. It's to do with the collapse of the entire Western financial system. You print, and you can't borrow anymore. You can't max out the credit cards anymore. They're all maxed out. So now the bill's got to be paid. So what they have to do is to get a new system in before this current system collapses. Every single fiat currency system, over 3,500 of them in history, has gone to zero. Every single one. Gold, silver have never gone to zero because they're real money. And Bitcoin, well, it's early days yet, right? Right. But
on that basis, because we're approaching the end of the segment, but I'm going to have to ask you. You're going to have to come back. Would you come back on the channel with me, mate?
Absolutely. I do got to tell you about Britain and Europe and the finances, if I may.
Go on then. Go on then.
Okay. So my understanding, Britain could be self-sufficient in hydrocarbon energy through gas, oil, coal, and you can derive oil from coal as well. So Britain's got resources. It's also got its own currency. Now, what's been happening lately for the last 2 years since they got rid of Liz Truss in that coup by the Bank of England is Britain has been selling US treasuries in order to depress US interest rates. When it comes to bonds and stuff, I'm a little bit twisty. I'm too much of a social worker to get my head around it, right? But Britain's been selling US treasuries in order to lower the dollar so it looks weaker against the euro. But the euro's got nothing to shore it up. And what Liz Truss was doing, I'm not a fan of Liz Truss. I'm not a Tory, but please God, can we have Margaret Thatcher back? I'd much rather her than this sorry lot, right? She was a sovereigntist. Okay.
You're a lefty saying you want Margaret Thatcher back.
This is going to get Margaret Thatcher than Sunak or Starmer.
Do you realise all those lefties out there are going to be having a meltdown, mate? I mean, really? What have you done?
It's shocking. But she believed in a small state. So what the European Union want, they want to suck. This is what I think. They want to suck Britain's wealth in order to shore up the euro. To buy more time to get the CBDCs in. Now, what we got to do is we got to accelerate the monetary collapse, accelerate how they, deprive them of funding for their systems. In one way is by legally and peacefully withholding tax.
We're going to have to definitely explore that a little bit further, but we are out of time. However, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on with me. When I have great guests like you on, the time just shoots away, and there's so much. I could do this for 2 or 3 hours with you, mate. Maybe we should do that at some point. But look, what I would like to say to you, and I know that's not your real name. Crypto Rich is not your real name, but that's okay. At the end of the day, we understand why, because of the work that you do. But look, it's been fantastic having you on. But I'm going to give you the last 2-3 minutes to say whatever it is you want to say, because I always give our guests that courtesy. So the floor is yours, mate. On you go.
Oh, Jim, thank you so much. I'm going to blush, and then I have to tell people that I'm blushing because my dark skin tone. Otherwise, they won't know. How will they share in my blush, right? So thank you so much for that. I really, really enjoyed talking to you, and we should arrange something else afterwards, right? For you to come on my channel.
Yeah.
What would I say? What would I say? I think I'd say to people is believe in yourself, trust in yourself. No one's coming to rescue us. We are the cavalry, and stop believing the lies. If the media tell you that this person is good, run screaming. If the media tell you this person is bad, pay attention to that person. And together we can build a world where human beings honor human beings.
Absolutely. And where the moderate left and the moderate right can unite, I think in unity, I think that just it blows up the whole globalist agenda there. And I think we've got a lot in common.
Yes.
We have far more in common than that which divides us. So look,
Richard,
this is a fight for humanity, mate. And we're all humans. We're all human beings apart from these globalist parasites. I don't think they're human. But look, at the end of the day, if they are human, they're not very good humans. They are a disgrace to humanity. But we've got to come together, mate, and we've got to work together on that. So look, a sincere thanks to you. It's been a real pleasure to see you again. And we're definitely going to have you back on. And of course, I would love to come on your show too. So thank you, Crypto Rich. It's been a real pleasure.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jim. All the best.
No problem. Thank you. And to all the amazing people out there who are listening to this, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, when I say things like humanity is under attack, I say it because I actually really believe it. And I think a lot of people out there who watch this show and who are aware and are waking up also understand that there's some dark stuff that's going on. But I've always believed that humanity will and must prevail because our destiny is greater than even most people could possibly imagine it to be. And we're going to get there. It might be a bumpy ride for the rest of 2024, and God knows, literally God knows what's coming in 2025. But we must get ready and we must be prepared. And remember to follow that link to freedomtraininternational.org as well, because you need to know what's coming. And we'll get you ready. Don't you worry about that. But my sincere thanks to each and every one of you. And of course, to my old friend, Crypto Rich. It's been a pleasure, mate. And we will speak soon. This is Jim Ferguson. All the best. Speak soon. Bye-bye for now.